So let's talk about the Google macro, right? They've got the FTC up their rear. They're getting pushed on. There's people trying to break it up. There is some concerns that it's abusing its monopolistic powers. There seems to be some concern about the company's, long term. There's a whole bunch of new search disruptors. We're hearing meta search, OpenAI search. Everybody's got a search. And we've seen this story before. Microsoft had the Chat GPT and Bing, and they were going to start eroding Google market share. And I mean, I'd call Microsoft a pretty formidable competitor, and I don't recall a whole lot of market share being ceded. Old habits die hard, folks, and Google has done a pretty good job. We could argue about the models, we can argue about the accuracy, we can argue about the quality, but their generative AI search returns inside of Google search is pretty well embedded at this point. So people are getting that sort of Chat GPT experience in Google. You and I are nerds, so we play with everything. We compare quality. That's our thing. But the average user, when I'm asking my mom, she's not switching off Google, and especially all the iPhone users that are default, unless they stop that from happening and that actually gets stopped, that will always play a huge role, is that on pretty much every mobile device in the world, the default search when you just type something into your search bar is always going to be to Google. That's 100% of the market share, folks, right now. So that's really, really interesting. But how did they do? I mean, look, it was a really good quarter. It was really clean. I mean, they beat on EPS, they beat on revenue, they beat on advertising. They, manage their costs pretty well on traffic acquisition, Pat. But I think the part you and I want to talk about, we like advertising. It's cool. We get a little bit excited about that search technology. But dude, cloud number. This is a over 40 billion a year run rate. Pat, you remember when it was like less than 10 total a year run rate? This thing has absolutely reached the inflection point. AI changed the order of operations for cloud consideration. It opened the aperture to multi-cloud in a big way. Companies kind of really started leaning in, doubling down. They had a decade plus of investment in building their own silicon, which they're starting to gain advantages and profitability efficiencies, lower costs. They're not as tied down and dependent on getting access to the NVIDIA. They're training their own models on TPU. They've absolutely had the chops with Brain, with DeepMind. They've been doing this for a while. So while others were talking about it, others have bought their way into it. They were doing this, and I think it's starting to really bear fruit that they have this kind of lineage of AI in their business and in their model. I mean, Pat, $2 billion of profit income contribution in one quarter from Google. You remember when we were going in, will they ever make money? How long can they keep pouring hundreds of millions of dollars a quarter into this thing? Now they're making money. And this is the thing about the Mag 7, I'm going to say, is all these companies can basically buy the market right now. And so when you talk about disruptors, my concern is that these 6, 7, 8, 10, or so companies absolutely can buy their way in with CapEx. They can buy their way in with energy. They can buy their way in with silicon development. They can buy their way in. So it's going to be really, really hard for disruption to take place. But at the same time, it takes more than a decade for the regulators to do anything meaningful. So there's no way they can stop it. Our system is just super inefficient. So if I'm an investor, I'm looking at this and going, this is really great. And by the way, Google was trading at a really low multiple. It was like 19 times forward. It was not trading at a super high premium. So there's a lot to be excited about here. Unless you believe regulators can really break this thing up, and I just don't buy it. And if they do, there'll be so many appeals. It'll go on for so long. It won't get done. And, and onward. And by the way, even if they do break it up, we'll come back to this later, and I'll pass the baton over to you, brother, is even if they do break it up, who gets all the benefit? It's another Mag 7 company. It'll be Facebook. It'll be, it'll be Amazon. Darn it. I just ruined the episode. It'll be Amazon. Like, Amazon's a 40-something billion dollar advertising juggernaut now. So where does it go? I mean, so anyways, Pat, the worries are overinflated. The results were freaking terrific. And it's hard to say a lot bad about this. These cloud companies have really clean quarters.
Yeah, lest we forget that Google created the first research paper on generative AI. They didn't move forward with it because they thought it was too spooky. And then OpenAI comes in and Microsoft latches onto it, and it's pretty much throwing in everybody's face. Bard comes out, that's a disaster. Gemini 1 comes out, and it's doing pretty suspect results, particularly on images. And then Gemini got updated, and it starts to get better. Now, if you look at the challenge that Google has serving up trillions of search results, you can't just put hardcore GPUs across that, because you're going to run out of money, and your profit's going to go in the toilet, and your stock's going to tank, right? So they had to come up with something, and that something was the TPU. Okay, the TPU, like Gaudi 3, is optimized for efficiency. You're not paying the NVIDIA tax. You are paying the TSMC tax and the Broadcom tax, but you're not paying the egregious, probably 500% margin that NVIDIA is getting on GPUs. And because it's more efficient, your cooling is lower, your density is higher, your energy bill is lower. So with that said, Google is not the first place that I go to do generative AI. I go to Perplexity, and if I don't see what I like in Perplexity, I'll go to Copilot, and then I'll go to ChatGPT. And again, we're kind of this weird version of people who needs to just go directly, to the source, and we can bop across different ecosystems. But we're not normal. Normal is, I'm going to keep going to Google. I kind of don't even know what this generative AI thing is. We're super enthused by, let's say 30 million paid users for ChatGPT, but what's the population of the planet? It's pretty freaking high. Sorry, I'm not going to open up that message you just hit, because
don't let me distract you.
Well, the window pops open behind me for some odd reason. Microsoft has got to fix that stuff. It's so weird. Anyways, if I dial, if I dial in a little bit, they hit on pretty much every single expectation metric across every business line was a beat or a meet. I think the only thing that was red was free cash flow, but give me a break. Google's got a ton of cash, and nobody should be worrying about that. When it came to Google Cloud, my gosh, the profits they're pumping out are freaking impressive. Going from losing a ton of money to making a ton of money, and the way that was addressed on the call was scale. It's all about scale, right? It'll be interesting to see if how long Google can keep that rocking, Google Cloud can keep that rocking growth percentage coming, 35%. So good job, Google. Yeah, I think you and I both know on the regulatory side, none of this stuff matters after 10 years. In fact, a news story last week said that after, I think it was 15 years, Intel won its case in the EU, brought to them by all the AMD stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. The one other thing I'll add is OpenAI is not going to take down Google. I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen. Market people, come back and tell me I was wrong if it does happen. I just don't see it.